So we now have some new music for the Malt Ale podcast. We are really pushing it now. So a very warm welcome to everybody. We had a couple of weeks off again, but we're back here on episode 15. And we are going to be tackling London, or in a very manageable bit, really.
Do what, mate?
Beery adventures. Right. Do you like music? Do you like it's ukulele something that's called? And I must say, it's a big thank you to Ben Sound. If you want some free and affordable loyalty-free music, go to bensound.com and you can get some music for your podcast.
Do you want some trivias about ukulele?
Ukulele, yeah.
Do you remember Sam Brown who did Stop?
Oh, Dad played the ukulele, didn't he?
Yeah, yes. Well, she has a ukulele band now.
Ah.
She's big into ukuleles. Yeah, I think she was a bit of one hit wonder. But yeah, Stop before you break my heart, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, yeah. So she has it's Sam Brown and the Amazing Ukulele Band or something. There you are.
Tremendous.
You enjoyed that,
right?
Didn't you?
Well, as always, we're going to have lots of chat. We're going to do a bit of catch up first of all. It's been a couple of weeks since we've all been on the pod. Bruce has sent. He just looks like he's been drinking for York and England and King Harry after his long absence. So there's lots of pictures of Bruce. There's only one or two pictures of me and Nick getting out there. But I've had really fairly quiet. I kind of had that initial burst and then calmed down a little bit. I've been quite busy at work as well. And then we are going to tackle London this evening, but a bit different to try and keep it under 17 hours. I didn't even think about how many pubs are in London. There must just be thousands, wasn't there? And
yeah, well, where does London start?
It depends how big
where does
London
start
is
and where does London stop? Really. Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we are going to each pitch 3 pubs each. Do it in kind of round 3 rounds, and then we are going to see if we had a short time in London, which 3 that we would go to as well. So as I mentioned, beery highlights. So Bruce, come on, you're going to talk us through all of this. Quite a lot of these, I think you were supposed to be going to the dentist or taking your good lady wife to the dentist. So this was the day, wasn't it, when you were back in pubs? This was the first Monday.
Well, we went down lunch hour to the Snickerway and had a splendid pint of it was at Shropshire Brewery. It was absolutely wonderful stuff. Shropshire Blonde. It was a fantastic pint with that one. That was lunchtime the day pubs were open. They'd only been open 2 hours. My lunch is 1 till 2. So but we had to mark the occasion. So we could Snickerway, cracking pub the Snickerway, and then followed it with a celebratory.
And you managed to get a pie in as well by the looks of it.
Absolutely, yes. It's
was it a religious pie?
No. I know. I stopped eating those. I've got 3 this week already. It's only Thursday. Yeah.
How busy was the pub, Bruce? Was it?
It was loads of people who were coming in and just having a pint. He said just to say they were back in and doing it. I think it's been constant since, but that lunchtime it was full of people like because I don't normally go to the pub at lunchtime, but it was full of people and couple doing the same thing. Just relieved to be in and just enjoying the old pub experience. Yes, it was a great feeling.
I was a tourist scene in York, Bruce. Obviously, not got any international tourists, but there's a few more homegrown tourists coming through the city now.
Well, of course, it's been hard to gauge. See you later, Iggy Pop. It's been hard to gauge because of the weather. Basically, it started raining on the Tuesday, of course, after the day the pub's open, and it rained until yesterday, really, but pretty much non-stop. That's been insane. So today, I have to say, it almost felt like things go back to normal. There was a big couple of people around the Minster or the hustle and bustle around there. There was traffic jams on the road, which was actually quite nice to see. Long time since I've seen that. But to be fair to the council, though, they put loads of communal outdoor seating in some really nice areas, front of the Minster, College Green. So, of course, you can go to a pub, get a take-out beer, small independent food shop, take it there. So that's great, really. So everyone's doing the best, see everyone benefits. So while we moan about them quite a lot, fair game to them. I think they could have done any more under the circumstances this time.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah, I was reading on the Visit York website, and it seems they've utilised a lot of areas, Parliament Square and St Sampson's and all that lot. So it sounds like they've.
So,
Yeah, a lot of picnic benches they've put out and a purchase. So yeah.
And then come on then, Bruce. We've got even more pictures of Bruce in various pubs here.
Yeah. So the top left is my wife. We're at the Grantley Arms in Ben Riddin. Ben Riddin, of course, that incredible posh outer suburb of Ilkley. Nice place, the Grantley Arms, I have to say. It's more of a hotel, but welcomes all the visitors and obviously a big affluent base. But again, great selection of beers in there. I was waiting for the barrel to be changed actually. That's why I had a pack of Veltins, but they had Saltaire beers. The oh God, what else did they have? The full range of Robinson's beers. Seem to have some type of Robinson's beers. Same people have the Tempest Arms at Elslack. That's a lovely place to stay as well. But yeah, great food as well, I have to say.
I was wondering, Nick, about doing that walk again from Ilkley to Skipton, and we did that, and we wondered about getting it for Ben Ridding, but there's a decent pub. I suppose it's a bit. We'd rather walk and get to Skipton. So that'd be,
20 minutes walk to the Grantley Arms, and I say it's better. They've got a nice outdoor area, and it's quite plush inside, but comfortably plush, yeah.
And how far is Ben Ridding from Ilkley?
I was going to say that make the walk longer because Ilkley is near to Skipton, then Ben Ridding is.
It is, it's about 3 or 4 minutes on the train.
Okay.
An incredibly wealthy enclave there, I have to say. There are more private roads and public roads there. Then, unfortunately, on the bottom left there, if you're watching YouTube, we then cross the road to when we
that's Ilkley Wetherspoons, isn't it? That one.
It's Ilkley Wetherspoons, which I say. To be fair, it only been open a few days. It had a deep clean, but the plastic screens made the place look awful. And the beer, I have to say, was absolutely terrible. Daleside Blonde's one of my favourite beers. I love Daleside Blonde. That was shocking.
It's all right.
Oh, it was awful. It was bloody awful. And the bottom right there, then the Flying Ducks at Ilkley, which had a fantastic range of beers on. You can see.
Yeah, I always do there.
Cracking range of beers, and amazingly well kept. And I say, I think the Wharfdale Blonde, that's the best seller by miles.
Well, the brewery's only about 10 yards away, so it should be good beer, shouldn't it?
It should be. It was great, and he was quite an extremely chatty barman. Dave, the temporary barman, was doing job.
Yeah.
But I think every beer there was from West Yorkshire.
Yeah.
The exception, they had one Harrogate Brewery Plum Porter, which was just across the border, of course. So I have to say, in terms of local, fantastic. Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. So Bruce has definitely been getting his own back on the beer, and he's definitely saying cask is back. And then me and Nick were a bit meagre here, Nick. Just one quick picture of yourself that you sent in. You had a little bit of a solo stroll last Saturday.
That was Saturday. Yeah, went up to the Royal Oak, had a couple of... they had Copper Dragon on, and we were all remarking that we hadn't seen it for a while, but it was Copper Dragon Bitter. So I had a pint of that, and then they also had... it's ironic, really. They had Brass Castle on, but it was called Emergency Bitter. And it was probably the best pint of Brass Castle I've ever had because it was very traditional.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Steve, and Steve says, I think he says it's called Emergency Bitter because they basically ran out or didn't have time to brew any of their fancy concoctions.
Yeah.
So they basically just dropped back on a very simple traditional bitter recipe and banged that out and called it Emergency Bitter. But as I say, it was probably one of the best pints of Brass Castle I've had. So... That was Saturday. Then walked back down to the New Malton. Tried my 3/3 all Yorkshire beers. Can't quite remember. One was Acorn. Can't remember what the other two were. And then Sunday called off the Fairfax Arms in Gilling East and managed a quick pint of Howardian Gold, which is the Hemsley Brewing. Yeah. I've got a little bit of news about Hemsley Brewing as well. And then last night went out to our local pizzeria. So started with a bottle of Ichnusa. Everybody else in there drinks Peroni, which obviously is now mass-produced sort of dishwater. Well, it's Ichnusa. I think it's Sicilian. It's still independently brewed.
It is.
So those that know.
Sardinian Ichnusa, Sardinian.
So those that know, it's the same price as a Peroni, but it's far superior. So you look around Florio's, and most people drinking Peroni, and those people that know about proper drink are on the Ichnusa. And then we just popped back up the Royal Oak again and had another pint of the Brass Castle Emergency Bitter.
Yeah, it's funny, Copper Dragon. It's our friends at the Tom Pudding beer shop in Goole. They just tweeted tonight their beer list for this kind of, I guess, for the weekend, and they've got a couple of Thornbridge, and they've got that Copper Dragon Bitter on, so it must be doing the rounds at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I hope that bit is still on, Brass Castle. I'm looking forward to some of that. Well, myself, as you can see there, that was last Friday, and that was my first time in a pub, although it wasn't a pub, it was the gin bar that my wife and nephew dragged me to. And I had a few of those little kind of, they only sell 2/3. So there was a couple of pale ales on, there was a Grim Burger, which I quite like, and then there was a Colonel on as well. the one there was the bill was 90 quid after 2 hours, which was. But as you can see, my missus and nephew were drinking 8-pound gin cocktails, so that's probably why it dropped up. And then on Sunday we managed to get out. The weather wasn't too bad actually. Took my lad biking, so we biked the Manifold Trail. It's one of those kind of old railway trails, and we ended up at Waslow, which is a little village, kind of in the Peak District. And there's it's a pub that's kind of re-emerged, I guess is the word. And it was okay. A young couple took it over. They've done a really good job over the lockdown. In fact, I promoted them on here because they got all the breweries in the Peak District to kind of come together, and they're acting as a beer shop. I think they're short of staff. I think that's one of the problems. And it was okay. Beartown had taken over the pub the night before, so they were all pared down Beartown beers. So actually the beer was okay. It was quite a long Sunday lunch that took one of those where you just sat for quite a long time. And because there was only 2 staff on, they weren't, and we were kind of tucked in a corner around the corner. You didn't, you had to wait a long time to get a drink as well. But anyway, the Greyhound at Waslow, I'd probably give it another go. It's certainly done a lovely job on the pub. It's quite a nice outside and inside. So that's it. But I'm heading up to Yorkshire on Saturday. So I know we've already got a couple of we've got a couple of places booked in for a couple of evening sessions. And I say the grand news is we are going to hopefully do a live podcast, and from out Harrogate way we're going, and we are definitely off the Roosters because I've booked us in. So we'll be at the Roosters Tap about 3 o'clock, which we're really looking forward to. We've got some fantastic feedback from that as well. We've probably call in the Cold Bath, which is a new one on me, really, Brewery Tap, which is in more central Harrogate. We talk about how going to Harrogate Brewing, probably calling Knaresborough, and I'm sure we'll end up in York as well for a few beers. So a bit of beer news. I think this is all from me this week, actually. I'll let you mention some. Picked up this one. We were talking about Vaux a couple of weeks ago, which is a very famous northeast brewery. And again, typical kind of things. They got bought out by various mega breweries. And I think, again, some of the beers that they used to do were kind of cuckoo brewed elsewhere and then dropped off. And TV celeb, the guy who does the guy that does the programs about kind of spaces and things like that. He's a Geordie bloke, and I can't remember his name. It's completely got in my head. But George, I think is his name.
Yeah, George.
Anyway, he's bought in. He's bought into Vaux. 2 guys apparently managed to buy the name and stuff, and they have started to produce some of the. I would suggest in the style of the old Vaux breweries. So there is a double Maxim, a Maximus, and a Samson as well. So that's really good. And it's
I've
nice.
had
George
that
Clark
Maxim.
is his name.
I've had that double Maxim in bottles. You remember? I was getting it from Morrison's reduced. So in fact, I've got a bottle in the fridge now. So
it's a bit. I think it's 4.7, so it's not quite as strong as maybe you. I think.
Well, they call it a brown ale, so I think it's their competition for Newcastle brown ale.
That's what they said, really, and they're claiming that they're the only now true northeast brewery that's brewing a traditional Newcastle style brown ale. Yeah. So it might be worth looking at for them as well.
Brewery. Is it back in Sunderland?
I think they are, yeah. I did mention those somewhere, which as always, I've rushed in from work tonight, so I don't know where to put them now. But yeah, no, so again, I'm sure if you Google that story, it will come up. The second one I just started, this is my work's local paper, the St. Helens Star, and this was their headline in last week's local paper. Customers in St. Helens drank 102 pints a minute on the opening night, which is going to do like the beer in St. Helens.
Johnny Vegas must have been out on town.
Absolutely. I mean, there aren't many pubs there, but 4,000 customers, they reckon they drank 102 pints a minute. So that's pretty good going. Well done to the fine folk of St. Helens. And then again, it's a theme that we've had over the last couple of weeks, isn't it? Sam Smith, and I know, Bruce, you've mentioned this, that there are lots of Sam Smith pubs that which have been shut now for considerable time, and whether that was just the pandemic. And again, I think this came through one of those camera kind of round emails that you get. A guy called Ian Glendinning, who again has been having a bit of a campaign to try and save the Anchor Inn in Gisborough, which is top end of North Yorkshire. Yeah. And again, that is one of those pubs. Sam's Pubs is a great little pub and was doing really well pre-COVID, but it just seems to have been mothballed completely now. And again, he was saying that there are apparently over 90 Smith's pubs now that are currently either looking for new vacancies, new management, or are just look like they've been mothballed. So it's interesting, isn't it? And again, a bit sad because it's a great pub. And whether that it may bounce back, I guess that was I think all some systems are managed, aren't they? So they have managers in, and whether that was things to do with furlough and stuff, who knows?
Right,
and again, just link.
Around here now, we've got the York Arms mothballed, of course, in the shadow of York Minster. Then Long Marston pub's closed, Askham Richard pub's closed, Appleton Roebuck pub's closed, Bolton Percy pub's closed, and I believe Walt Hill's closed. I think the one at Stamford Bridge is closed as well now.
Right.
And the pub at Skelton, so it's just mad. So all the places the village pub used to go, and of course, the only pub in the village as well. It's absolutely
yeah. So this guy Ian, he's got
I mean, whatever really. They get I think about £18,000 a year. That includes, but they get the rent, and it's weird, really. He doesn't want the husband working. Apparently, this is the big issue. He wants two people working, but is it such a bad deal if you're getting your rent or your accommodation paid?
But I suppose the challenge is that they do food, but a lot of them are kind of wet driven, aren't they? And I would imagine, just because we know Sam Smith, you're a bit limited in maybe some of the things that karaoke nights, etc. There's a pub open in Stoke-on-Trent that's got a golf course, one of these golf simulators. As well as doing the pub garden, they put a whole golf simulator in, so you can go have a not round of golf, have a few beers. I can't see Sam Smith letting that happen in their pubs. So, that's a challenge. How are you going to make keep that barrel? So anyway, this guy.
I should imagine it's psychological as well. The fact that that he sends spies round at any time. He could send somebody into your bar. You might be upstairs having your lunch, and just because somebody swears in your pub or takes the mobile phone out, next thing you know, that's it. You're out in your ear. So you can't relax, can you? You can't have any off time, because even if you're not physically working,
spies round. I think reputedly send spies round.
Well, this is how he's closed pubs down, isn't it?
Or he himself goes around a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah.
There's plenty of evidence that says, we'll come on to that in a minute about London pubs. Apparently, he went for a cask in London, and it was horrible, and that was it. He just pulled every pub in London does not serve cask Sam Smith.
When he went into the Wellington Brews, and because they had too many people outside. What happened there?
Well, she was in breach of the COVID rules, actually, so you can't really blame him for that, can you?
But I say it must be the psychological thing that all the time you're worrying that you have a night off, you celebrate somebody's birthday, and yet you're just wondering what's happening back at the pub. If you're a landlord, you do that anyway because you're always frightened of your license. But it's not just your license you might lose; it's the roof over your head, because obviously that's what he's got when he's got people living in his pubs. A lot of the people are taking his pubs on. It's a case of you're out in your ear tomorrow. That's and it. Off you go.
You're also living above the shop, aren't you? Which again, I'm amazed now. Most pubs don't do that. Do you? You don't actually live. Very not few, but there's quite a lot of pubs now where they just go, they lock up and they go at the end of the day. And again, just link. So this guy Ian, there's a letter, and again, I think I signed it. That's gone to the brewery. I'm not quite sure what response we'll get, but again, for camera members, there is now a little bit of a forum for Friends of Sam Smith's Brewery campaigning. So again, as Bruce mentioned there, if that's happening in your area. And again, just linked to that, there was some talk then about a couple of London-based guys saying they're currently charging £7.40 a pint in London pubs for a pint of Stingo. Stingo is quite strong. So I don't get that, but it was interesting that Opinions guys, I've just been listening to their podcast this week on the way home tonight, and they've been out and about, and they were saying again they'd been to a pub where 6 pints had cost over 50 quid. And again, it was 7 odd quid a pint. And they were saying, the problem is, okay, that, yes, we're supporting breweries, but is that going to push people back to say, you know what, I might as well go to the supermarket. I can buy 4 beers for 7 quid and nice beers and a selection of beers. So it'd been seen to see what happens to the price, really. And I've noticed the price has definitely gone up.
Oh, yeah.
When I've been out, it's definitely, up, and, which is fair to. They've got to get some money back. But I think that's the danger, isn't it? We've got so used to drinking at home for the last 18 months. And there is, as we've been saying, there's a massive variety in your supermarkets and your bottle shops, online. All those online beers that people probably never bought before. I'll work it through. Nick, you got some other brewery news you mentioned, Nick? Some more beer news? Or?
Yeah, so I mentioned Helmsley Brewing. I've had it on sort of semi-good authority that they might be moving closer to Malton. They might be a spit away from Malton Town Centre. The smithy in Swinton?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they reckon they've bought that. We had noticed an extension going on the side during lockdown. It operated as a shop. The pub had been an asset to the village. It operated as a shop, obviously, while it couldn't sell beer. And it proved very, very popular. So we saw that they were building what looked like a big garage on the side. And I thought, are they going to put a permanent little store in there? But I've been told, no, actually, that's where they're going to put the brewery into, because the couple who have Hamsley Brewery are moving to the pub instead, which will give them, obviously, a proper tap. I mean, the premises in Helmsley, you know where it is, Mike, just over the bridge there. It's not really a bar or a pub. That's where they were brewing from. So they'll have a proper pub now, proper tap. And as I say, once again, for me, it's walkable from where we're at Malton. It's half an hour walk.
Cyclable, like, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's Hemsley Brewing. I'm a bit concerned because got an email from Great Newsom Brewery informing us that Nick, the head brewer, Nick Hopper, was leaving after 13 years. It was quite amicable, the email wishing him well, etc., etc. So went on their website, and it appears they're not only advertising for a head brewer, but they're also advertising for an assistant head brewer as well. So I'm just wondering what's gone on there. If they've lost the head brewer and the assistant brewer, maybe those two have decided to go off and do their own thing. But I just hope it's not going to affect the quality of the beers, because, as you know, that's one of my favourite breweries. So maybe find out a bit more information about that.
I was looking to try maybe plan a visit and see. Again, you can't do much of the brewery. I think they have tastings every now and then. And I mentioned to get as a slot at World Top, but Nick's turned me down. So I was going to maybe go to World Top Brewery, because they were doing brewery tours again.
Hey, you might be on your holiday next week, but some of us are working, and I've got an eight-day lined up anyway, so I have to do things like washing and shopping on one day.
In a brewery.
Well, no, washing and shopping and all that sort of stuff.
All right, well, talking of beer, let's just, before we kick in, out, just have a quick run round and what we all having to drink off tonight, because we all seem to have beer in hand or beer near hands. So, Bruce, are you on the amber nectar tonight?
Yeah, sadly, I had my second job on Saturday night, and I've had like a stomach cold since I'm drinking Dandelion and Burdock.
Yeah. I thought that was a kind of craft beer, Dandelion and Burdock.
It looks like a craft beer can, doesn't it? It's Dandelion and Burdock, yeah.
Go on then, Nick, what are you on?
So, a couple of interesting ones. Ossett have started to bottle the White Rat brews.
Oh, excellent.
So, Ossett have always had the White Rat Brewery. It's cuckoo brewed. And obviously, when we go in our favourite pub in York, the Hop, it's always normally on the bar in there. But as I say, I've just seen it in bottle for the first time. And yeah, that's quite nice. So that's a bottle of White Rat to start with. And then, Mike, you mentioned this 2 or 3 weeks back, the collaboration between Adnams and Thornbridge, the stout that they produce. They have a case of this in Morrison's at the moment on the top shelf. It's not going very quick, because I think that was about, I can't remember if it's £2.80 or £3 for the can, but I thought I'd give it a try, see what it's like. So that's my follow-up tonight. It's the Nevermore, and so that's a collaboration between Adnams and Thornbridge.
What style was that?
Been Ilkley and Wharfdale on the taps of the Flying Ducks, and we'd run out of time, really. I would like to try that, yeah.
Well, I'm on a Burning Sky tonight. I've just been I'm actually getting to the bottom of my boxes, so I'm on a Burning Sky, which I really quite nice. I got the crafty, but it's quite nice. This is their pale ale, which is quite nice. And then I've got a whole bit craft tonight. I'm just using my boxes. I've got a Beavertown neck oil next, and then I'll finish with a creme brulee or creme Beale, which we had before. So this evening we are going to try and tackle London. So we all probably. Well, I'm less so now. I used to go to London quite a lot. I used to have one of the jobs that I had meant that I was in there quite a lot. And actually, I used to be there quite a lot on my own. So it's quite interesting, because I do quite like London pubs, because I think there is that thing about them. I think they get so much turnover that if you're on your own, I don't know. I think there's quite a few places where if you're on your own, you're going to pub, you get kind of strange looks, don't you, and whatever. Whereas in London, I never felt it was a problem, and people just let you get on with it. Some pubs, people want to chat with you. Other pubs, people's left you alone. Great places to go. I always go get the Evening Standard, which I think is a great paper. Sit in a corner. Certainly now, what's his face? Osborne's gone. Is he still there? Anyway, sit in a corner, read the Evening Standard, read the Metro, have a few pints, listen to whatever, look at my iPad. So I quite like London pubs, and as we said, there is so much choice and there is so much variation, and literally you can get pissed in the street, can't you? Quite a few streets in London where there must be that many pubs as you go down. So what I suggested we did is that we all thought about our pubs, and if we had an afternoon in London and we could all do 3 of them, as there are 3 of us, which 3 pubs would we choose? And again, we put this out to Twitter as well. So we've got a few, actually, to be honest, quite a lot of our pubs were the choices of our Twitter area followers as well. We wanted 2 other ones as well. So as I said, we're going to pitch them. We've got, I think, just about, I've kept 2 slides for those on YouTube of pictures that we can talk about, and then a bit of a summary page. So me and Bruce have done that. Nick's going to do his verbally. And then we're going to have, at the end, we're going to vote. Now, what I'm going to say is you can't vote for your own pub in each round, and then we'll see what happens. We'll probably get a 3-way tie, but you never know. I've put a map of where I think we've just about hit on the right-hand side, and we're actually, to be honest with you, probably because of where we come into London, we either come in, you guys would come into King's Cross, I normally come into Euston, although sometimes occasionally go to St Pancras because I can go up the East Midlands line as well. So we're in that kind of square between, I don't know, Soho, Fitzrovia, Pancras, Euston, Holborn. We're in that kind of slot, aren't we? I think, Nick, you've got one slightly probably towards, where do you say that Red Lion is?
No, it's Westminster.
Mason. Westminster.
Yeah. So I
think mine and Bruce's are fairly solidly in that big blob where you can go. And of course, the great thing is you can walk to most of these places, can't you? So I think if you think about probably the British Museum in the middle, as I was kind of fulcrum, we're on kind of spokes out of the British Museum, but no it on Great Russell Street. So I think I'm kicking off tonight. So let's have a quick look at where we're. Yeah. So my first choice of pub, and I think I've definitely been here with Nick. I've got a feeling I might have even been here with Bruce as well.
Possibly, yeah.
My first choice used to be called the Welsh Harp, but it is now simply called the Harp. And the Harp is on Chandos Street, which we probably know well because there is a very good Sam Smith's pub called the Chandos on Chandos Street. And the Harp is kind of just off the corner of Covent Garden as you're heading towards the Strand and Trafalgar Square kind of way. It's a little bit of a kind of not back street in London, but you know what I mean. It's not a massive, it's not a street where the buses tend to go down. And apparently the Institute of Chinese Medicine is that place next door, which you can just see on those on YouTube. But I understand that they've managed to actually buy that, or the pub has managed to get that, where that green door is like a arched entrance, and then apparently they've managed to get hold of that, and they've actually got tables and things in there as well. But this is one of those London pubs where the whole of the front window comes out. And if you get a nice day and you get there early, you can sit in that window and literally watch the world go by. It's also a pub that gets pretty busy, and it's a pub. I think last time me and you drank there, Nick, we were stood in the middle of that road, and you were saying we stood in the middle of a bloody road drinking beer in London, which is as there's a picture there for those that there. It is a Fullest Pub, but it's a Fullest Pub that seems to have a very open, we'll serve whatever beers people want to buy, really. There is normally, I'm looking there at a picture, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or so cask lines on there. I've got a blackbird there for Nick, a blackboard there.
Blackboard here. So, it doesn't look like a Fullest Pub from the outside.
No,
it's not distinctive.
Yeah. It's got a bit of history. It's been a pub since 1785. And as I mentioned, it was formerly the Welsh Harp, and apparently was run by a legendary Irish landlady called Beanie Walsh. It was bought by Fuller's in 2014, but as they said, they were committing that it should be one of pub. I think one thing that it's got, this was the first ever London National Pub of the Year for CAMRA. So it was the first pub from London that was given that, and that was in 2010. So I think that's why Fuller's quite rightly thought, you know what, it works. So we'll let them have a little bit of leeway on the beers that they buy in. And I'm looking on there. Yes, they've got Fuller's on. They've got Redemption. They've got 5 Points. They've got a few Macros, Peroni and thing, Colonel, Beavertown. So there is a fair selection there. And again, I just want to show you this picture. I've cheated a bit. I've got them, but that's to me is the epic part of this pub. If you get in that front section there with that window pulled back, it's a fantastic place to drink beer in London. Slightly away from the maddening crowd down the road in Trafalgar and Belmont Square. Normally get some people who like the beer in there as well. So it's a place where you could probably sit on your own, but equally, I think every time I've been in there, you strike conversation with somebody as well. So just to sum up then, it's a Fullest Pub, but there's a load of good beers. There's a Sam Smith pub across the road. It's a proper boozer's pub. There's no jukebox, there's no TV. There is actually upstairs, as in lots of London pubs, actually, a nice little snug upstairs, nice little posher room. a lounge room upstairs, where again, if it's too busy downstairs, you could get up there as well. So on the edge of Covent Garden, so you've got all the sites and things. It's got a blackboard for Nick, and you can drink in the middle of the road. So that is my first pub, the Harp. So
only problem with the blackboard, it doesn't have the prices on it.
Well, that's London for you. So Nicholas, your first pub is the Red Lion. Now there are lots of Red Lions in London, and certainly we all know another one, which is
there are lots of Red Lions in the country, because didn't we say that the Red Lion was the most popular name of a pub in the country?
Yes,
when we did our pub names and branding and things like that. So yeah, it's not the one on Trafalgar Square, and it's not the one. I think there's one Mayfair as well. It's actually in the area of Westminster, and the best way that I could describe it, it is between Piccadilly and St James's Square. And if you want a landmark, then you head for Fortnum and Mason's, dive around the back of Fortnum and Mason's, and it's actually on the Duke of York Street, which is always easy for me to remember, being a Yorkshireman. So Duke of York Street, and it is tiny. Maybe the anybody on YouTube, the landscape aspect of the photograph that you're showing there, it looks bigger than it actually is. But you walk into it, and it's literally it's one room that is divided into two areas by a big horseshoe mahogany bar. And if you can get 20 people in the front bar and 20 people in the back bar, then it is full. Once again, didn't actually manage to get a photograph, but yeah, on a decent day, you'll get as many people stood outside blocking the pavement onto the road. So once again, it's a little road. It is a road that has traffic run up and down it, but you don't get buses and stuff. It's only a small road. So yeah, it is absolutely dripping in etched glass, mahogany, gilt metalwork, and in fact, the architectural review described it as a perfect example, except for bomb damage, of the small Victorian gin palace at its best. So I say it's a Fullest Pub. They normally have the full range of Fuller's ales on. So they normally have 6 hand pumps, and then they have the tea bar as well with the Fuller's cask and craft beers. But as I say, it's just nice, and it's intimate and it's small. You know, I mean, Westminster, say off Piccadilly, it is a busy area, but you get quite a mixture of drinkers in there as well. Food wise, it's a normal fare, more lunches than evening meals. And I say your problem is you'd probably struggle to find a table to eat a meal at anyway. Yeah. But it's one of those places, you know, just to pop into and have a pint of Fuller's. And it's surprisingly not that expensive for the area where it is compared to the ones that the tourist traps. Yeah, it's as I say, it's a typical traditional. It's grade 2. It's grade 2 listed as well. Classic Victorian interior, built in 1788, and that seems to be the boom time for a lot of pubs to be built originally to be established. So yeah, that's the Red Lion on the Duke of York Street.
You always wonder with these pubs, kind of what it's like, kind of behind, you know, down the stairs and the cellars, and you know, like you said, the history that's there. Now Fuller's again, they've split, haven't they? They've split the brewing from the pubs, haven't they? So didn't see maybe how that developed. Because obviously we mentioned before that Asahi, I've said that right, bought Fuller's out, didn't they, some time ago?
Asahi, yeah.
And I understand that they've split up the pub co-group have gone one way, and the brewing's gone the other way, which might be why the prices have gone up quite a lot as well. Okay, right. So that is Nick's pub number 1.
Have you frozen, Mike? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hang on, he's back. There we are.
He's back. Am I back? Who's back?
Yeah, you froze. Me and Bruce were all right. Okay. You're back again now, though.
Let me knock my camera off for a minute, then see if that helps with my bandwidth.
Well, it helps us, doesn't it, Bruce? Yeah.
Right, Bruce. Pub number 1 is the Lyceum Tavern on the Strand.
It is cracking pub, the Lyceum. Sam Smith's pub. I know we were degenerating earlier this evening, but this is a great pub. If you were an American coming to London for your first ever time, and someone said, "Oh, take me to a proper British pub," not too chintzy, not like a untouched historical artifact, but a pub full of people, full of life. I'll take the Lyceum. You go in, it's on the Strand, of course. It's a fantastic address, you know, tucked away there near Covent Garden. But you go in there, you've got that row of booths down the left-hand side. You get one of those, it's great. The area at the back's always rammed with people. The staff, bizarrely, really, because the staff in Sam Smith's pubs in London always seem extremely friendly. Jeff says that was the case up here, and it's kind of at odds with the reputation they've got. But the staff here are always really friendly. They've got, like many pubs in London, they've got the upstairs dining room, pretty traditional. But I love the Lyceum. Say the booths make it. You've got, Strand outside just to wash for life. People going to from Covent Garden, from the theatre. Big mix of people in here. Fantastic pub. And years ago at work, actually, I did hear a story that the McDonald's Corporation had wanted to put a McDonald's on the Strand. And that obviously were aware that Sam Smith's, of course, the biggest owners of freehold pubs in London. They have 63 in central and greater London on freehold, which is it's a lot of money. So obviously their vast profits, wrote to Mr. Smith and said, we'll buy your pub off you. I don't know what price they mentioned. Perhaps a copious amount. So of course, as with most people write to him, he ignored the letter. The letters kept coming with amazing amounts of money, jaw-dropping, eye-watering amounts of money, until in the end, Mr. Smith told his secretary to write back and ask them how much they used to extend the McDonald's next door, how much they wanted for the burger bar next door to shut them up. Yeah. So fantastic.
Yeah.
So I like the Lyceum. I think it's a great pub to pop into, a great location as well, as they can just snip there by just snip through to Covent Garden. And then it's full of, thespians late at night, when they finish, try and get there for a couple of drinks before they go home. People going to theatres before the shows, shoppers, business people, real melting pot. Like you said, that's the thing about London, isn't it, really? Yeah, the pubs are melting pots and,
Yeah. It's like you say, Russ, with the Strand, there are some interesting pubs down there. Because have you ever been the old coal hole?
Yeah, that's where, when we used to go to London from work, we used to go to a place by the side of the Thames, the Adelphi building. They had 2 or 3 floors in there, and that was their preferred watering hole. Nice, the coal holes, and I like the coal hole, yeah.
Right, and then there's a Nicholson's across the road as well, isn't it, on the corner, which is a better one. Is it the Wellington or something like that? Some military. I know I've been in that one before. So yeah, there are some interesting pubs down the Strand. Yeah.
So that's round one. So we've got.
I have to say, I should add that the Lyceum was the second ever pub where I think we went to London. The Red Lion in Westminster was the first, and then we went to the Lyceum. You didn't come, Nick. You went to see Angela Rippon.
And of course, the urban myth about Mr. Humphrey Smith is that he owns most of Canary Wharf, doesn't he? Which is where as you said, Bruce, well, as you said, they certainly own a lot of property in London. I mean, even just the number of pubs they've got is huge. But there's also the urban myth that actually Humphrey Smith owns most of Canary Wharf as well.
Yeah, apparently what happened was that him and his brother were quite intrigued when Rupert Murdoch started buying up land in the East End. So he too bought some. So he apparently him and his brother actually owned the land on which Canary Wharf was built. And apparently at one point they owned 11% of it when it was built. They were quite happy with it apparently. And of course, then when it was built, and again, this is just all hearsay, of course, they've got the mezzanine levels and all the areas where the bars have been. So of course they said, well, we want at least a couple of venues in there.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work like that. And so when they weren't allowed to have any venues, they sold all the shares and kind of plunged at the big sale when they could do with it, sort of plunged a bit of a economic crisis, really. So they're no longer running, but apparently that's what the rumours are. To Canary Wharf.
And then, of course, the other thing we've talked before is it's actually Humphrey's son Samuel Smith that actually looks after the London estates, which might be why there's maybe a slightly different approach to the way the pubs. Because although again, I think from what we understand, he's an interesting character. I think he's probably a little bit more on the button about what we need, what they need for pubs in London. And by the sounds of it, most of those London pubs have reopened, unlike a lot of the northern pubs as well. So we'll see. Right, so that's round one. So sorry, that was we should have done that, but Bruce, that's your quick summary. So he mentioned that was one of the first pubs that me and Bruce ever went into back in 1984, which is scary. But Nick said he wants the Angela Rippon at some TV studio. Crack a little booze with booze. Great mix, as you mentioned there, Bruce. Unspalt, and like the Cheshire cheese, unpeeled by Sam Smith. And again, yeah, looking at that photo, that on the right there, that's very Sam Smith lounge, isn't it?
Is,
With those kind of studied seats, whatever they call them, paneling. We might come back to that in a minute. Right, so we're on to round two. Nick, I think you're kicking us off this time. And this is one of the most popular pubs actually on the Twitter feed. Other pubs that people recommended, a lot of people said the Lamb. So tell us about the Lamb.
Oh, it's good because I actually came up on the Lamb a couple of years back, and that was literally from walking from King's Cross. Obviously, anybody travelling down from York, you pull into King's Cross, and I thought, well, I'm not going to get the tube, not going to jump on a bus. I'll walk it into the city. So walking down, came across the Lamb. Nice because this is a Young's pub. You know, the two big brewers in London that were and still are Fullers and Young's, although they're not brewing in London anymore. Not as, shall we say, as traditional on the outside, although it's not looking bad in the photograph there. It's got the green tiles, but very traditional inside. Different areas, big, once again, mahogany horseshoe bar. And it's got what are known as snob screens as well.
Oh,
and these were,
those, didn't you?
Yeah, these were glass screens that, there we are. So in the time of Victorian times, when people wanted to stand at the bar, but they didn't want to be pestered by either the staff or look at other people drinking, they could close the screens and it would protect them from people across the bar seeing them drinking. And then obviously when they wanted to drink, they would just open the screen up. I suppose it's the Victorian equivalent of our sneeze screens now with the COVID situation. As you mentioned in Wetherspoons, Bruce, all the perspex screens that they've got up, I suppose these would have been great sneeze screens in the Victorian times you keep the screen closed while you're having your drink, and then when you're ready for another beer, you just push them open. And so this one has
still work.
Screens.
Did it still work?
Oh yes, yeah. And in fact, there's another pub that we frequent as well. There aren't many pubs in the country left with them. There's one in Birmingham that's well known, and various other places. But yeah, they're known as snob screens. So food better in here. You can get a decent meal, and it's a normal pub fare. They are roast. There's a nice big pile of sausages and mash and a Yorkshire pudding there.
Nice.
But they do things like stews and stuff like that as well. Once again, when I've been in there, quite a mixture of different clientele, a lot of older people who have got time to pass. It's just opposite Great Ormond Street Hospital as well. Not that I could see many medical staff in there, but it's that very traditional, as you can see, the bar there, that massive great mahogany horseshoe bar right in the centre. And then you've got areas down both sides. And then there's a slightly sunken place down at the bottom. In fact, last time me and Jackie went here, that's where we ended up because it was busy. And I'm led to believe they've got a beer garden as well. Not that I've ever been in there, but obviously in a place like London, that can often be a bonus rather than having to stand out on the street and drink, although the Lamb does have a little bit of a forecourt, as you saw in the first picture. They've got a beer garden out the back as well, which would be quite nice on a summer's day or a summer's evening. Once again, architecturally, English heritage described as an exceptional piece of Victoriana. And as I say, as well as having the normal young brews of the original London Golden Special, they always have Charles Wells, which I understand. I think a lot of Young's beers are brewed by Charles Wells now. And then they also have...
I'm just reading that now, actually. It's one again, because I thought there was a connection with the Lamb, because the Ram Brewery, wasn't it? That they have a lot of Young's beers have got a sheep connection, because it was the Ram Brewery. I'm reading here.
Well, that's the symbol. Yeah,
yeah,
that's their
it
symbol.
was 1831 when it was founded. It was claimed to be the brewery with the longest brewing venture. But as you said, Nick, the brew was closed in 2006, and they transferred into a joint company with Charles Wells Brewery and
Bombardier fame and banana bread and
Then it looks like now they've been brought up by Carlsberg Marson Brewing Company in 2011. And yeah, the Wandsworth Brewery, the Ram Brewery was the oldest brewing site in continuous operation, going back to the 1550s. So a bit of heritage.
But say thankfully they also have guests on in there as well. They normally have 3 or 4 guests.
And again, like you said, a typical one of those very Victorian style. Lots of dark wood, lots of glass.
You know me for me tradition and sinking back in a dark seat, and you almost blend into the pub. You can watch the world go by without, as you say, if you're on your own mic, people not even noticing you're there. Almost sitting in your lap sometimes, not realizing.
Well, I think I've sat on those seats out. You've got the outdoor there. You've got the seats there. I think that's a COVID one because it's got one-way entrance. But I think I've actually had a beer on those seats out the front there, which again, like you said, there's a nice little terracey bit that kind of fits onto that street, isn't it? It's got a wide pavement.
It's called the Lamb's Conduit Street because Mr. Lamb produced a water conduit there. So I say it's a road that runs north to south, but once again, it's fairly quiet. It has sections that it's pedestrianised.
It's kind of parallel with probably Southampton Road, which is dead busy. And this is a much quieter way to get, like you say, down towards Covent Garden and Holborn and places. Yeah,
that's it.
Okay, good stuff. That's Nick's pub number 2. So Bruce is going to take us to another very old pub, which claims that it was rebuilt in 1667, and it's older than that. So Bruce, your pub 2 is the Old Cheshire Cheese.
So it's a bit of a London cliche, the Old Cheshire Cheese, but the oldest pub in London, one of the oldest pubs in London, got destroyed, rebuilt following the Great Fire in London. Everybody knows that. But I love the Old Cheshire Cheese. I mean, again, you go in there and it really is a bit like Nellie's in Scarborough. It's almost like a bit of living history.
Scarborough in Beverley.
Yeah. So yeah,
the dandelion burdocks gone to your head, Bruce.
So yeah, it's a bit like walking into Nellie's, isn't it? But you're 200 miles away. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of living history, isn't it? The Old Cheshire Cheese. That's a bit right there, really. Unfortunately, I was last in London in early 2000 and well, I was over there with family last year, but to go drinking was with a friend was 2018, and on Sunday it was closed, sadly. So I've not been for a good few years now. But again, this is one of those, although it's subterranean, it always seems better when it's dark outside. It is downstairs, looks at nooks, crannies, wonky floors, rough around the edges, and of course, sadly, I mean, it's in the heart of Fleet Street, and over the 70 say later, you know, the thousands of journalists over the years that have spent time there, you know, the country's great stories, scandal, scoops, gossip. They were hatched up here, or of course, with a great journalist drinking establishment, was Elvino, wasn't it? But this was a wash from morning to night with, you know, drunk, sodden journalists in the golden age of Fleet Street. I think it's really sad the papers have gone now. And now, of course, because I guess it's a massive victim of the daytime economy in London, which of course is absolutely shaken to its core, isn't it? I do wonder how busy it'll be now, because it's a pub that needs people, isn't it? But Trish Sampson, but I say, go down that little alley, and it's like entering another little world. You could, you know, it's like a museum with beer, really. I really, really like it. As we mentioned before, until recently, you come out of the Lyceum and get the number 15, which was the last Route Master bus, stand outside the Lyceum and get an original London Route Master almost to the front door of the Cheshire Cheese. And sadly, because TfL are in £1 billion worth of debt, they've now withdrawn the Route Masters, which I think is a real great shame, because of course they used to run from Trafalgar Square to the Tower of London, and you could have had a proper Route Master rail tour. And I hope they find a way to bring those back, really. So yeah,
is it open at weekends, Brooks? The problem with a lot of the pubs around Fleet Street, a lot of them don't open on Saturday, Sunday, do they?
Yeah, but I was a Sunday when I went, but I was on I checked on the website, say it was open, but I say it has closed, and so like you say, that whole area now is just shook to its economically, it's creaking into it, really.
And again, it is quite like medieval crypt almost, isn't it? Like you say, it's subterranean. It reminds me, Nick, of that pub in Chester, you know, the Spitting Feathers tap, where you go upstairs. That's an old medieval hall. I think you've been there.
Yes, yeah.
Very similar. I mean, it's not quite the same, because it's up rather than down. But Bruce, another Sam Smith's pub. That's 2 in a row.
It is. I did think.
You can't leave Yorkshire, can you? You just can't.
All I can see in these pictures, Bruce, is lager drinkers by the look of it.
It's never.
They're all organic. Like a Ingerbrow or whatever.
No, there'll be an organic lager at £12 a pint in there. Probably. I mean, listen, organic lager's bloody expensive in Yorkshire, so God knows what it costs in London. Okay. And then, I did spot this when I went on their TripAdvisor page, Bruce. I also found this very stunning pie, which maybe again has just persuaded you that that's the place to go. Looks a very nice pie that does, by the way.
Yeah, it is that pie. A lot of these pubs now, it's nature. It is really quite good. Yeah.
Okay, and again, that was your little summary there. So yeah, subterranean sit and drink with journalists. And I've also reckoned, I've just a quick look there. Charles Dickens apparently drank in this pub, and a few other literary greats did as
Oh,
well.
he also drank in the Lamb as well, supposedly.
Well, he's drinking most pubs, didn't he?
He sounds like right pisshead, doesn't he? Yeah.
And I think I like Bruce's last statement there, which snubbed by craft beer wankers is a cliche, but more atmosphere in one room and most other outlets put together. Oh, we'll see what happens in the cold bath chat next week, Bruce. When I'm going to get.
I must have had a drink. I did do the free late last night and had a whiskey. Look at me punctuation, misspelling.
And I've corrected some of it already. Okay, so that is Bruce's pub number 2. So my pub, I don't think either of you guys have been in here.
Yeah.
And this is probably the pub that I've spent the second most time in London. So this is not a million miles away from where you guys have just been. Well, certainly Nick, or no, more Nick than Bruce. So the Queen's Larder is tucked just off the road that goes from Euston, King's Cross, St Pancras down towards New Oxford Street and Covent Garden. It's off Southampton Row. It's just off Russell Square. So it's again, it's kind of in the middle. And again, very close to the London Museum, the big museum. And it's tucked down a little side street. This is not a vehicle street, which is really nice. There are a number of. There's another pub, a Young's pub actually, a bit 2 doors down. There's an Italian restaurant. There's a Chinese, so it's quite nice. Behind it is the British Medical Association, and across the nice little square at the back of it is the Great Ormond Street Hospital. So you do get quite and London University's across the way as well. So you get a really eclectic mix of people, really. And I've got a lovely picture of it in the snow. And I remember it quite a lot. I was often in London in the height of kind of late July, and the picture there is people sat outside on a balmy London night. When it is, I just love being in London on those kind of nights when it is literally 25 degrees outside, even though it's dark, and drinking very lots of probably too much beer. It's a free house, so again they normally have a fantastic list there. Again, there is a blackboard, Nick. Again, there's no prices there because it's London. But on this, I think I don't know. I got this off. I think maybe this was off TripAdvisor. They've got Mallison Centennial Southwark LPA, an Animal XT Yokobar, a Mad Squirrel London Porter, Oakham Citra, Dark Star American Pale Ale, Fuller's London Pride, Dark Star Hophead, Harvest Sussex Best. So there was some really good beers there. And again,
Oakham
really
Citra,
nice
yeah.
selection. And I think because they're so close to hospitals and universities, they churn a lot of beer. So the beer is always fantastic. Again, it's got a real bit of history. So that's the little picture there. Wow. So in the background there, that's all those big hotels down Southampton Row. Yeah. And this is the back of it, which is one of those little squares in London with a nice little garden and stuff in there. But I can see this look. Well, you actually can see there a lot of guys with briefcases and medical bags. A lot of doctors come here when they finish their shift at Great Ormond Street. And a bit of history. So the Queen's Larder is actually built on the site of the Queen's Larder. In this terms, it was Queen Charlotte, who was wife of Mad King George III, famous for running in the sea and places at Brighton. And apparently the Queen's doctor lived in Queen Square, which is what you're looking at on this picture here. That was named after Queen Anne, a different queen. And she used the cellars beneath the present day pub for storing her husband's very special diet. So it is a lovely little pub. Again, I've got a quote here from TripAdvisor. We love this pub. It was filled with the gentle murmur of conversation, no TV or loud music. It seemed to be a locals pub and served food and good beer, which is not bad for a pub, is it? And so that was it. I've said it's a pike's length from University of London, BMA, Great Ormond Street, Bloomsbury's Leafy Squares and Hotel. So you get a very eclectic map. Punters, it's a proper Bruce's pub. Loads of outdoor options. There's no cars down there, so it's great. You can spend the street. 10 minutes walk from Euston, St Pancras. So again, if you were going for a train, it's a great place just to have a nice beer without getting too tied up to those pubs there. And as I said, it's not a young story, it's a Green King pub now, the Swan, which is actually okay as well, which is 3 doors down. So it's quite a nice little pub, the Queen's Larder. Well worth looking at. I'll say it's probably 10 minutes from Euston and maybe a little bit longer to King's Cross at Pancras. But again, if you were kind of heading back towards, from a weekend in London, it's a good little pub to find out there as well.
That was a great interior too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we're into round 3 already. And Bruce has picked, again, probably one of the most famous pubs in London. So Bruce now is taking us right into the middle of Soho. And your third choice, Bruce, is the very famous, I think it's always referred to as Norman's Coach and Horses, after, again, one of the legendary landlords who's been there for a long, long time. I'm not sure he's no longer with us now. Well, if he is, God, he must have hell of a liver. So tell us about the Coach and Horses, Bruce.
He's alive, actually, because there was a bit of research about this. there's a bit of a Twitter feed about the pub, and someone said they saw him shuffling around at Marks and Spencer, looking very old 3 weeks ago with a couple of bags of shopping. Yeah, I mean, coaching horses for me, it's quite a personal thing because, of course, I grew up as you know, I grew up on racing stables, and I wasn't particularly literary household, but of course, it was awash with racing papers, which were like very limited appeal to a sort of young person. But I used to flick through them. And I stumbled across this fellow called Jeffrey Bernard, and he used to write these columns that weren't really about horses, about betting.
There he is. Nice picture of him.
There he is himself. And and all the things that befell him. And he was a funny writer, a great turn of phrase. And these were like great enthralling stories, all about drinking and drink and the disasters that befell him, really. And of course, I got older. I realised he wrote a column in The Spectator. I didn't always buy The Spectator. I got a Hoppers, and I could read his column in about 3 minutes flat, really, put it back without paying for it. And invariably, he'd have like cirrhosis of the liver. He was in hospital on a drip, so it'd have to be missing as well. And of course, then he got more and more popular and started writing more stuff. And of course, ultimately, they then wrote the play about him, Jeffrey Bernard is Unwell, by Keith Waterhouse and Peter O'Toole, which I did go to see. But I did have to say, I love Jeffrey Bernard, so I read everything he wrote. And actually, one day, I had to go to London, to Ascot Sales to do a little job for my dad with somebody else. And it was a Monday, and I said to the person, so let's see if Jeffrey Bernard's the coach and horses, and we were there early. The horse was sold out of reach. Got back on the train to London, and he was there actually. And the fellow I was actually a reasonably well-known jockey who just recently retired. So he'd been in really. So I said, oh, Mr. Bernard, and he was like a bit like scowling to people saying that. And I said, oh, we just thought we'd say, look, this is, the jockey was doing me. I won't mention him for embarrassing him, like. And of course, he knew this, you see. So we did actually spend about an hour and a half in his company, just talking about horse racing. He was incredibly knowledgeable, and you could see he was actually quite tickled pink. We popped away in to sort of see him, really. He had incredible depth of knowledge because he wrote The Sport in Life. So it was great. So they say you should never meet your heroes, but I did. Yeah. And he was actually great company. I don't know if I didn't, but I really wish I asked for the autograph. In those days, you behaved as be picture like. And of course, that was it. So he became a bigger celebrity. Of course, Peter O'Toole paid him. And then, of course, sadly, he died just a few days after Princess Diana. So his death went relatively unnoticed. But yeah, so for me, the Coach and Horse was this place that existed in literature, but actually existed. So, of course, I've gone a few times and seen it. Norman went a good few years ago. Then a couple took it over. We kind of maintained the same people there. But there was always a great crowd in it. It always reminded me a bit like, it's rough around the edges. And to be fair, Fuller's have bought up in 2019 now. The couple fought a battle to keep it, but obviously they were nothing against Fuller's. And to be fair, I understand they've kept it untouched, but obviously now got staff on, wages there. But it's the people that make the public coach and horses. There are always people in huddles and plotting things, and proper characters in there. Really, an amazing feel. And it is, you can see this kind of a lot.
Well, the photographs that you show in here, Bruce, it looks to me like a cross between a working men's club and a bookies.
Yeah,
with them vinyl covered seats and sort of like varnish.
And look at the edge playing wood, and that's still there. But it did have a very homely feel to it, and you could really see that there were people who did live the bulk of their life outside work in this pub, really, and that's central London. But I say, fair game to Full, as I say, they've not altered it by a great deal, I don't think. So yeah, so for me personally, the Coach and Horse is my favourite London pub, and then with Jeffrey Bernard.
It reminds me very much of Sotheby's, and again, the pictures for those that are on YouTube.
Well, that's exactly what he said. He's going, it's like Sotheby's in London, and it was. And
even the style of the pub, I mean, the bar there is fantastic. I guess it's kind of Art Deco in a way, isn't it? It's got like that marquetry, and I love that. Can you see that marble kind of whatever it is? I hope it's not where you piss into it, but at the foot of the bar where your footstool would be, or your kind of rail, it's like a marble indented.
Well, it's like almost like alabaster, is it? Oh, yeah.
I suppose you drop your fag ends in there rather than there.
Yeah.
Look at the etchings on the bar, double diamond, in
skull,
Great stuff.
And it's on a corner. It's like one of those typical Soho pubs on the corner, isn't it? And I think Norman, the guy in the middle, that's Norman, the legendary landlord, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, the French house is just either across the road, is it, from here as well, which is another very, very famous Soho boozer. Maybe slightly more of the kind of glitterati than maybe the more
right.
down to earth with Jeffrey at the bar here holding fort. So okay, so that's Bruce's third pub, and again that was just his little summary there. So we mentioned Jeffrey Bernard, Soul Institution, Double Diamond and Incoop, pedestrian interior enlivened by original cartoons. He mentioned about Fuller's, and again he mentioned that Jeffrey Bernard is unwell. It is actually a great film and a great play, that actually, isn't it? It's a really interesting one, and you mentioned like Spectre, etc. So that's Bruce's third pub. I think it's me now. Oh yeah, well I've already mentioned this one because this pub is just round the corner from one of London's most famous shops, which is the umbrella shop, the Smith and Sons umbrella shop on New Oxford Street. Which again, I'm sure if you've been to London, if you've gone on a bus tour or if you're walking towards Oxford Street and Regent Street, you may well have passed it. And I mentioned there's another one as well, and the other very famous shop is actually just around the corner on the top of Charing Cross Road, which is the Arthur Beale, which is a chandlery. It sells, bits for yachting. And from what I understand, unfortunately, where James Smith has managed to survive the pandemic, unfortunately, Arthur Beale's, I think is due for closure because obviously there's not a lot of call, I guess, for bits of rope and anchors in central London these days. But again, it's another fantastic little shop that's obviously been there for years and years and years and years. And betwixt both of these, in fact, you can actually see it on this picture because the umbrella shop is next to a very unassuming little pub, which is called The Crown. And if there's any pub in London where I've spent most of my time, it'll probably be upstairs in the Crown or in the front room. So this is again one of those, not a unique pub, but it's got two entrances. It's got a front entrance and a back entrance, and they are similar. They are very similar kind of style, but very different. So the front of the pub, and then for those on YouTube, it's on the left side there. That's right onto New Oxford Street, so a very busy road, lots of buses and taxis flying by. And the pictures on the right-hand side are the rear, which is a little enclosed square, which is right on the top of Shaftesbury Avenue, Shaftesbury Avenue, and then the road that goes down towards Covent Garden. And it's quite a nice little with some London planes trees, which have a lovely shade, and they have quite a nice little sitting area at the back there as well.
It's one of those like little island blocks of buildings, isn't it?
Yeah,
that it's got roads on three sides of it, and it's almost like a little island. Yeah.
So this is again, I'm afraid it's Sam Smith's pub. There's a bit of a theme here. They have it's a very old traditional pub downstairs, and as I've mentioned already, there's quite a nice posh lounge upstairs. We'll come to in a minute. They don't have a blackboard. They do have a blackboard for food, Nick. And again, just to make Bruce's point, really, sausage and mash, £8.95. Now, okay, this is a picture that's this photo is a couple of years old. Fish and chips, £11.95. That ain't bad for central London, and you get pretty good price at it.
Yeah, but I was going to say a lot of food in London isn't bad because they know the competition.
Yeah.
So, it's hard enough getting your people into the pubs. So if you can persuade them to have food as well, rather than going to a cafe, a restaurant, a McDonald's, a pizza, whatever. I've always found, in fact, that the food is better priced than the beer.
Yeah.
The beer is a lot more expensive than what I'm used to, but the food, in fact, in pubs is not bad at all.
The beer here used to be stupidly cheap, even for Sam Smith. I mean, I remember going here and then I'd go to whatever I was working at conference and people would be moaning about how much they paid for a pint last night in the hotel. And I'd say, well, I went to a pub in London and it was £2.90 for a pint. And it literally was. And I know a lot of people from that have found it out. And of course, what I love about this pub is that you don't often see this in all Sam Smith pub. They don't have a beer blackboard, but they have one of those beer menus, which is fantastic. And I've got a bit of a picture of it there. And I am going to pinch one of these one day because they're great. They're always quite dog-eared, but it gives you the menu of all of Sam Smith's offer from the fruit beers all the way through, which is fantastic. And of course, for me, the highlight of this pub is they serve Sovereign Bitter, which is my choice of Sam Smith. But actually, you hardly get it anywhere now apart from London.
It's discontinued it, Michael.
No, apparently, I looked again and it hasn't. Apparently, I thought that.
It's discontinued in Yorkshire.
Well, that's what it is. I think that's exactly what it is. So I think it's now only available in London, which is probably why I get frustrated when I go into York pubs and they say, "Oh, we don't serve it." And again, the other one thing you will notice here, there's no hand pulls. And again, there's another urban myth there that Humphrey once did come down to London, and he went into one of these pubs and he asked for a pint of draft or cask brewery bitter, and it was horrible. And he said, right, that's it. People in London can't look after my beer, so it's keg only in London. So I don't know if that's true, but
no, well, I think that's your answer then, Mike. the old breweries for up north, because he's putting it in the wooden barrels.
Yeah.
Whereas down London, number one, they won't probably want to transport the wooden barrels down to London. They're not got cast down there, so they're brewing the Sovereign for the southern trade.
Yeah.
Because if it's brewing a bitter, it's going to keep better traveling down there anyway from the brewery. So that's probably the reason being.
And again, it took me a couple of years going to London before I found this upstairs, which is difficult, isn't it? With the actually not always open; it's only open at certain times. And again, it's quite a strange place. So you have to go to the back door, open another door, and find the secret stairs. So it's one of those bits that actually people in the know about this. And upstairs there is a fantastic little lounge. And as you said before, Nick, if you've got your better half with you, it's great because the downstairs is a bit grotty, apart from right at the front of the pub.
Yeah.
But upstairs is lovely. It's plush. Well, it's like an Edwardian sitting room.
I'm finding this more and more with Sam Smith's pubs, even the ones in Leeds. Like you say, it seems that they all have upstairs now, and he goes for the lounge parlour look upstairs. And in fact, my final pub, you all know it very well, only from just doing my research in terms of history, to discover that my pub's got an upstairs, and the photographs are very similar to what you're showing there.
Yeah.
Comfortable couches, carpeting. So the next time I go in my third choice pub, I'll be going upstairs. I didn't even realise it was there. So this is the other thing with Sam Smith's. It's always worth exploring to see if there is an upstairs.
Yeah. And again, you get a good mix. You get a lot of tourists because it's on that kind of tourist trail. You get a few, not many Londoners, but you get a lot of people like me who know it, who know that it's a really good pub for some cheap beer. So you get a lot of exiles in there or people at work. And again, I often sit in the window when I've been up here, and I've always this is probably the only pub in the world where I go and sit with somebody else and say, "Do you mind if I sit next to you here?" And I've got into fantastic conversations with beer people, from America, Canada, all over the place. And if you really look at the upstairs bar is open, and certainly there was a young lady who's working there who was fantastic. And again, they don't always open the upstairs bar, which is a bit of a pain. Again, that's the other problem when you're on your own in London pub. It's often hard to go and get a drink, isn't it? Because you come back and there's a lot of Italians sat where you were sat, your bag's gone missing or whatever. So that was this is my third pub. So it's a Sam's pub. So I did check. Last time I was at $3.60 a pint. It's a proper boozer. Again, there's no jukebox, no TV. And they always have Sovereign on, which is their slightly stronger bitter, which is a rarity these days. Lots of outdoor options, car-free. Again, you're on the edge of Covent Garden, Soho, Oxford Street. It's got a beer menu. And there's that fantastic umbrella shop next door if it starts raining and you need an umbrella. So the last pub of our choices then is another Sam Smith's pub, which is the Pretty Louise.
I really gave the secret away, didn't I, when I mentioned it was. Just before I start talking about the Princess Louise, I've just cracked the Nevermore.
All right, yeah.
Now, don't know if you can see the colour of it. It's tawny, I would call it. Now, Mike, you'll have to try a can when you come up because I'm not rating it.
Right. Okay.
It smells of toilets.
Oh.
Not chemical toilets. Toilets that haven't been cleaned. Honestly. Well, I don't know. And the taste it's strange. So have a blast of it. In fact, I'll bob in and get you a couple of cans tomorrow. Right. Maybe that's why it's still sat on the shelf. Maybe other people have tried it. They've had one can and that's it. Which is a bit of a strange disappointment, really, for Adams and Thornbridge, two of my favourite breweries. I don't think they've achieved what they were after.
The range of beers that Thornbridge are kicking out at the moment, though, it's unbelievable the amount of beer. I mean, it's a big unit, but
it's strange.
The beers they're chucking out, So Sam Smith's number pub 77.
I think it's probably more of a thing to Thornbridge get their beers down Norfolk, Suffolk, South Way, and then Adams. All right, they've got certainly the bottled beers are known up here in the north, but if they can get in a few bars as well, I think it's probably more of a collaboration as far as that's concerned than let's come up with some wonderful new beers. So we gave the secret away. You two guys both know this pub, just down the road from the Crown, onto what you would call, I suppose, Holborn. Once again, handy for me walking down from the station. If I'm not calling the Lamb, then I'm calling the Princess Louise. Quite a modern pub in the timeline of pubs in London, in that it was only actually built around about 1872, which, as we've said before, that was that heyday of late Victoriana. And once again, it is an absolutely stunning example of a Victorian pub inside, gin palace, or whatever you want to call it. It was actually acquired by Sam Smith's quite late on as well, mid 2000s, and they actually went in and refurbished it in 2007. But once again, they got a lot of praise for the sympathetic redesign there, kept a lot of original features, used proper craftsmen. It's none of your chipboard stained to look like mahogany. It's real wood. It's real etched mirrors. It's grade 2 listed. And in fact, the toilets are also grade 2 listed as well. The gents' toilets are actually carved out of marble. So that's something to behold. Massive, great big central island bar that serves about 7 different areas. Some are small cubicle rooms that you can get 6 to 8 people in. It's a bit of a squeeze. Others are a bit more opened up, sides, front, back. And then, as I say, only when I was researching the history for this podcast did I discover that upstairs they have a huge lounge area with a little bar up there as well. And once again, it's of comfort with comfy chairs, lounges, armchairs, and carpeting. So this is a place that I would always go to. And as I say, what I tend to do in here, instead of drinking the beer on tap, is I treat myself to some of the bottled beers, because the way I see it, trying some of the bottled beers, they are expensive, but they're no more expensive than what I'd be paying for a pint of Young's or a pint of London Pride in another London pub. So if I'm paying £4.55 for one of their organic beers, it's the same price anyway, and it gives me opportunity to try those. Yeah, once again, Mike, it's a pub that I have done quite a few times when Jackie's been going to the theatre and it's been something I'm not fancied. I will go and sit myself in there, and once again, I got myself right in the front bar, in the front window, and got talking to 3 or 4 different groups of people that came in and went. I was sat there on my own on a bar stool, and they must have thought I was a bit of a resident, because they were foreign tourists, and told them a bit about pubs and beer and things like that, and had a right enjoyable evening on my own. So yeah, this is one we all know. Once again, it's Sam Smith's pub, but hey, that's what Sam Smith has got a good reputation for. Sympathetic restoration and doing it properly as well. Restoration that will last the test of time.
Yeah. Well, we've been a bit of type, haven't we? So 3 Yorkshire blokes go to London and choose 4 Yorkshire pubs, which is pretty good. So I think I'm gonna try my new thing now. I think, hang on, that's the end of our little round of 3 pubs. So I did mention that 1 or 2 other people had come again on the Twitter had thrown a few ideas in. Nick, actually, you chucked in the Viaduct Tavern, which again, actually, we kept that. A couple of other people had mentioned that as well. And I think good. You were saying next time you fancy going here, next time we're in London. So,
a couple of reasons actually. Obviously, we've gone from New Oxford Street, the Crown, Princess Louise and Holborn. Then you've also got the City of York, another Sam Smith's pub a bit further down. Carry on going down that road. You're then on to Holborn, and you've got Holborn Viaduct, and you've got the Viaduct Tavern. Now, I've never been in here. Fullest Pub. Once again, it's described, a lot of people describe it as the best remaining example of a Victorian gin palace. As you can see, it's got the curved frontage there. It's also supposed to be one of the most haunted pubs in London, because it actually stands across from the Old Bailey. Now, before the Old Bailey was there, it was the old, Newgate prison. And in fact, when they were executing prisoners, they used to bring them out into the area in front of the pub and hang them. And so if you were sat in the pub there, you had a bird's eye view of the hangings that were going on. And they also reckon that there was also a debtor's prison on this site before the pub was built. And the cellars, you can actually still see the cells of the debtor's prison in there. And it's right sinister, horrible and eerie. But the other reason that I would like to go to this pub the next time I go to London, I promise you guys a little bit inside of my brewery area again. I'll just swing my chair around. If you look at that picture there, can you see that there are 2 pub signs on either side?
Oh, yeah.
Now, although the picture's a little bit small, if you're able to zoom in, you might just see that picture there.
Oh, nice.
So I've actually managed to acquire that sign there. Is actually one of the original pub signs from the Viaduct Tavern.
Fantastic.
And just to crown it off, this is why I like Fullest Pubs, because obviously Fullest Pubs are very traditional. I also managed to get the Griffin and the sign as well.
Excellent stuff.
So that's my addition. And you can think, all right, it's a fairly modern sign that they've had to replace, but think of the sights that those signs must see, looking down at the entrance to the pub and London going by. And I'm quite pleased because obviously there aren't that many viaduct taverns in the country.
Oh, no.
And anybody who knows the Holborn Viaduct, it's
nice,
cast iron, it's
it is,
painting, it's actually got statues on it as well. So as
Yeah.
I say, I'll jump up and you can have a closer look at this picture. You can see it's actually a picture of the viaduct. So just one second.
For those on the podcast, just take a little 10-minute sleep while Nicholas rearranges his house to give us the pictures. But now he's bringing a lovely picture. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I guess people, it's worth picking out that.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to go and do some gigs down there at the Great Methodist Hall, which be down there, and I think I've actually been in this pub a couple of times. Like you say, Nick, it's that again very Victorian, as you said, that gin palace, which a lot of these pubs are, isn't it? You know, we mentioned the Philharmonic in Liverpool, very similar as well. Yeah,
I might just hang it outside my house here, and folks will think this new pub opened in Norton.
So that's one maybe to go in there as well. Other ones that were mentioned, people mentioned the Lyceum Tavern, not surprisingly, which I go, I've been.
You've been in there, Mike.
It's quite, it's interesting. The Globe Moorgate, the Pelt Trader, which is a bit more of a beery hally place. I know the Opinion guys like that one. And that's down near the, the Fire of London Memorial as you go towards St. Paul. It's kind of down there, not far from the river. And the parcel yard, and you mentioned that a few times in previous podcasts, haven't you? So we weren't far off.
Yeah.
And as always, in fact, it came in my inbox today, the London Drinker. Obviously, we talked a lot about the local camera guides, local camera magazines, which are fantastic, great source. Are really good, actually, because the London one's fantastic. It has... it's huge, it's massive, and it's
good old thick read, isn't it?
Oh,
pick one of those before you get back on the train.
Yeah,
that's a 2-hour train journey over and done with. Just sat reading that.
It's really good. They do massive kind of updates on the what's pub listings and what's changed and breweries. So, and again, I say it's just coming in my inbox today. Actually, it comes via one of my camera things. So
after I've been in the parcel, which is obviously it's the Fullest Pub overlooking the platforms at King's Cross. If I've got time, I then normally pop into the little Waitrose that's on the station, grab myself a couple of bottles of Fuller's Black Cab, which is their stout. And then, as I say, it's a couple of bottles of Fuller's Black Cab and the London Drinker on the train back up to York, which is an hour and 55 minutes.
Definitely worth looking for. And I say the great thing, if you go, the website, the whole of that London camera website is fantastic. Loads of stuff on there. But I say you can subscribe to the. And it's, to be honest with you, I've been looking. I had a quick look tonight. It's not just London. They've covered all the country. They've talked about pubs up and down the country as well as London one, or news and what's happening around the place, which is really, really good as well. So we are here at our final count.
We're voting, are we?
Let's get the minions out of the way. So round one, I put forward the Harp, just off Covent Garden on Shandor Street. Nick put forward the Red Lion, which is somewhere around the back of Fortnum Mason, and Bruce put forward the Lyceum Tavern that is in the Strand, which is a Sam Smith's pub. So, Nicholas, you can't vote for the Red Lion. What would get your vote?
I'm going the Lyceum. Reason being, I like the Harp, but the problem with the Harp, Mike, it's too small. Now, if I'm in London, I'm doing a lot of foot slogging, and sometimes I like to just drop into a pub to have a bit of a rest. And unfortunately, I think the Harp most times is too small for that. Whereas the Lyceum, it seems to have more indoor area.
Okay.
So I think it's a little bit more comfortable than the Harp. I'm not disputing that Harp isn't a cracking place. And like you say, if you get there at the right time and get yourself in the window, as long as people don't stand in front of you. But I just think
I'd book you that chair, Nicholas.
In order to have a half
and explain your illness to people who were there, and you could sit down.
A wee stop and a pint, then I would go Lyceum, Bruce.
Okay. Bruce, you can't vote for the Lyceum. Which one do you vote for?
Well, I do like the Harp, and the thing about the Harp is, if you're down that street, because often we've got the Shandos, then go towards Covent Garden. On a night, that street it's kind of lots of backs of shops. There's also loads of rubbish down there. The street itself comprises of backs of shops and backs of places, and I don't particularly like the street itself. But I really do like the pub, the Harp, I have to say. Well, I think I've not been to Red Lion, but I have to say I'm going to definitely go. I thought it looked absolutely stunning. So for me, it will be the Red Lion.
Okay. Well, I think I probably agree with you because I think I'd Lyceum would be okay, but I think I would probably choose another Sam Smith's pub because again, as we've explained, the problem was you haven't got well, you have to drink Sam Smith's beer, put it that way, and there's no cask in there. I think I would probably want to go to the Heart personally because the beers I can pick a nice beer in there. So I think the next best thing would probably be a nice pint of Fuller's in the Red Lion. So I think that's where I would probably go. So I think the Red Lion gets the first round vote. Okay, so we're on to round two. So round two was the Lamb, which Nick put forward. Bruce put forward the Old Cheshire Cheese, another Sam Smith pub, and I put forward the Queen's Larder. So Bruce, of these three, you can't vote for the Old Cheshire Cheese. So the Lamb or the Queen's Larder.
I thought both interiors were quite fantastic, actually. I really did. But Queen's Ladder, of course, getting inside is going to be a massive issue, isn't it, really? But I do like, I've been to Lamb only on one occasion, sadly. I thought it was quite wonderful. Yes, it would be the Lamb for me.
Okay, Nick, you can't vote for the Lamb. So which one are you going to choose? The Cheshire Cheese or the Queen's Larder?
No, so this time I'm going to go Queen's Larder.
Okay.
Yeah, Cheshire Cheese is unique inside, Bruce, but I like to be comfortable. And like you say, it's just like sitting in a cellar.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of the Lendl cellars in York. It's like my cellar. They're unique, but like you say, it's subterranean. And is it comfortable? And whilst I've never been in the Queen's Larder, location as well. Obviously, that part of town, you know, not going quite as far as where the Old Cheshire Cheese is, and Green King pub. I'll accept that if they've got a good range of beers on. So no, I'm intrigued to try the Queen's Larder. So I would probably go Queen's Larder.
Okay. And I think if I was given the choice, the Cheshire Cheese or the Lamb, I probably would want to go the Lamb. So I've been drunk in there. It's a nice little street, and actually, there's quite a few different shops down there as well. Isn't it? It's a bit more kind of. There's a lot like I remember right. There's a Caribbean food shop and an Italian deli and stuff. So it's quite a nice.
Oh, you love.
Yes, yeah. Quite a nice. And again, there's normally a good vibe there. Back in those summer, evenings. And then you end up near Gorham Fields, which is a lovely big play space,
huge.
isn't it?
The Lamb's just below Gorham Fields.
That's right. Yeah, which is really nice. So I think Nick wins again. The Lamb's going to get the vote for round two, and then we're on to round three. So round three, we've got the Coach and Horses that Bruce Bob and Soho, not a Sam Smith pub. Bruce, well done. The Crown, which is a Sam Smith pub in Yorkshire, and the Princess Louise, which again is another Sam Smith pub. So Nick, you kick us off this time. What would your choice be?
Yeah, sorry again, Bruce. I'd go the Crown. If it has to be a Sam Smith pub, then I would always go Princess Louise, but obviously I can't vote for that one. But I have frequented the Crown. Nice. The Crown has got that big outside area behind the pub on a nice evening. As I say, it's quite small inside, and it's very what you would call utility downstairs. Certainly, I remember last time me and you went there, Mike, we ended up sitting in the back room where the bar was, and then you only just happened to mention, "Is your upstairs open, mate?" And he said, "Oh yeah," and we went there, and I was a bit more impressed. But as I say, the fact that once again, it just doesn't like a pub at all. If you blink as you walk in that way, you'll miss it because it is quite small. But in terms of the Coach and Horses, Bruce, I mean, as you know, Jackie's a big theatre goer. So often, if we go to the theatre in Soho, she takes me in the pubs, and I don't like them. They're just too busy. They're not comfortable again. I know all pubs in London are busy, but a bit hit and miss in terms of what beer you can get. And I know the Crown, it's Sam Smith's again, but hey, I'm a Yorkshire lad. I like me Sam Smith's anyway. I'll drink the old brewery when you guys are on the electric stuff. So out of the two, I'd go the Crown.
Okay, Bruce, so you can't go for the Coach and Horses. So it's the choice of Sam Smith. It's the Crown, not the Pretty Louise.
Yeah, I love the Crown. I mean, it's almost like a little backstreet booze, isn't it, really? That's the top of Tottenham Park Road, which is astonishing, isn't it, really? Yeah. I love the Crown. And it's rough and ready on it there. But I think Princess Louise is an absolute marvel, really. I mean, the work that went into it, Fullest Chapters, it's such an amazing job they've done on it, really. You can just sit there, really, and so much to explore in there. It's just a joy to be inside the Princess Louise. So for me, it'd be the Princess Louise,
Princess Louise, okay. Well, I probably would choose a Coach and Horses just because it would be nice to go. And I think if you went early enough, you'd probably get a seat in there. Or again, as I said in London, if you get for that 3:30 before the nutters all come out of the office, well, they probably don't these days because they're all working from home. So I think we're going to have a three-way split on this then. I think we are. But I think I don't know, if I said to you all which pub would you choose, I think the Crown might, if we all said we had one pub to go to, would that be the Crown? Don't know. What
Princess
what do you
Louise
think?
for me.
You'd say Prinny Louise.
Yeah. And especially
fair, Crown.
exploring the upstairs. I mean,
Yeah.
I took Jackie in the upstairs of the Crown. She was well impressed with that. Looking at the pictures of the upstairs and the Princess Louise, she'd be even more impressed.
So it's a little bit, I don't know, it's quite a bit bigger, isn't it, than the Crown, the Princess Louise? It's quite a bigger pub.
Yeah.
I don't know whether, quite, I don't know. Yeah. I know what you say. Yeah. And it's a nice place to go. And again, and we've had some good nights in there. And then what was the other one just to think about is a similar one. What's the one over towards Victoria? Is it called something Bishop or something?
I know.
Do you remember we went there and again they'd all gone to the cinema or
the taxi driver couldn't believe we got a taxi just outside the
Cardinal something. It was
the Moon Underwater just off Trafalgar, and we said, right, we want to go here, mate. And he was a black cab driver, and even he struggled to remember where it was. And then he said, we gave him the name of the street, and he said, well, what's there? We said, oh, it's a pub. And he went, what, you want to go there? And that was, once again, it was, I mean, I'd had a few by then, as you remember, because that's when I'd knackered my ankle in. It was a massive, big square pub with a massive island bar in the middle. And like you say, it must have been, 5 or 6 minutes to walk away from which theatre is it, Victoria?
It was show Wicked, wasn't it? Wicked, yeah.
Because there is another one down that way called the Edinburgh Castle that me and Jackie have been in, which once again is a typical Sam's, lots of mahogany lounge area, and then a strip floor area as well.
I always get those two mixed up. I'm just looking now because I always get them two mixed up. Those I'm just looking now. Crown and Sugarloaf, Duke of York, Gold Swiss Cottage, Ordnance Arms, Tom Wow, Tamworth, Mr. Whitfield, George. No, it'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah, well, you came up with it, like, so.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I quite like that. It was quite a nice little whistle stop.
So what was that then, guys? Two to me.
So yeah, all right.
Split decision
Okay,
on the last one.
Go on. You get a clap and I'll give you a cheer. Right. All right. Shut up now. Right. So we've done quite well for time there as well. We've had a good little chat through. So the plan next week is, as we said, exciting really. And again, I guess it feels like we're getting back towards some kind of normality. The three of us, hopefully, unless I bring the Bury version over to Yorkshire. Although it's in Yorkshire.
Rydale was top of the list again, not one infection last week. So out of every out area county in the country, Rydale was the safest.
So the plan is we are going to meet probably on York Station at around about 11 o'clock on Wednesday. And we're probably going to head off towards Knaresborough and towards Harrogate. Bruce has got a cutting plan to try and get us to go to Pateley Bridge, but I think me and Nick might put our foot down and not spend 3 hours in a bus.
Mike, we'll distract you and send them cakes in Knaresborough again.
And I say, it'd be
like Father Jack with a bottle of Jameson's on the end of a piece of string. We'll dangle one of them choco pans with confectioner's custard in, and he'll forget all about Pateley Bridge.
The only firm thing is we're booked into Rooster's Brewery Tap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the rest is going to be, we'll make it up as we go, really. It's the Tuesday after bank holiday. So again, we'll be interested to see what's open and what's not open. We're a bit worried about Knaresborough because it's a lovely town, but
I don't know, is it Tuesday or Wednesday? What are you talking about?
Wednesday. Sorry, Wednesday.
I've got Wednesday off work,
yeah, me too, and I'm working the next day.
Well, hopefully, that might be even worse thing because Wednesday's the middle of the week. So we know that in Knaresborough, pubs can be a bit eclectic when they open and stuff. But that's the plan. And I've got a little mobile system set up. So we are hopefully going to be doing some podcasts as we go. And I will try and splice them all together and put them out. So again, we'll definitely do an audio one. And what I'm hoping is to take lots of pictures. I'm not going to get too I'm not going to try and zoom as we wander around pubs, and I'm not carrying laptops. So I think I can do most of this on my iPhone and my little sound card and a couple of lapel mics that I've procured. So we will do some live podcasting, put that together, and we'll get the audio version out pretty quickly. And then I'll hopefully put together a little YouTube version, which has got some pics of our adventures. And we'll probably stop at about 7 o'clock when we hopefully get back to York and leave it at that, really. So I think that's it, really. Guys, any more plans for the bank holiday weekend?
Well, the weather's quite looking better and better now. So we are hoping to go to the coast one day. I suspect I think it's Bridley, Whitby, Whitby,
Bridley?
Whitby or Scarborough.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm fancy going to Hornsey again, Nick, actually. I might go to Hornsey again maybe next summer up next week. We're quite a little nice.
Not
place.
many pubs there, though, is there, mate?
Well, there's a few pubs on the way
Yeah,
back.
Mm.
Be a desert. Well, good fishing shirt.
Beverley would probably be a better direction.
Oh, we'll go to Waldup Brewery then on the way, but now. I should have.
Mm.
Very good. And say I'm off to Yorkshire, so again, me and Nick will have some more beer adventures. Hopefully, maybe meet
Yeah, some
Bruce
of us are working.
Another session as well.
Some of us are working Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Nick, I would argue that someone's been working non-stop since March 2020 when
Yeah,
most
some
people were put on
of us
furlough.
as
But
well.
I won't
Some
go
of us
there.
as well.
I won't
Yeah,
go
yeah.
there. Right, I'm playing the
Yeah.
music to kind of take us out again on episode 15.
I'm
Nick is
just-
waving his fullers.
I'm going to
Griffin.
stroke me Griffin then.
So I hope everybody has a really good bank holiday weekend. Go and support our pubs. So as Bruce says, the weather looks great. So even if you can't sit inside, get a beer outside. And we will hopefully catch up with you next week with Malt Travel on Tour, which sounds very impressive.
Bye.
See you later.